Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here because we are breaking down a really fascinating paradox today. So picture this, your typical workday. Your phone's buzzing nonstop, Slack is blowing up, and your inbox is just this never-ending waterfall of urgent requests, right? We're all living in this fast-paced culture that practically demands instant reactions. But today, we're flipping that entire concept on its head. We're going to look at why slowing down actually makes you a faster, better, and way more effective leader. Drawing from some highly provocative insights by Ian Slade, we're going to explore why hitting the brakes is sometimes the absolute only way to truly gain control over your environment. Okay, let's dive into this. Rushing? That's for amateurs. Boom. Right out of the gate, Ian Slade doesn't pull any punches, does he? This is the central thesis we're looking at today. We live in a business world that totally glorifies hustle, speed, and split-second reactivity. We've been conditioned to think that moving fast means we're getting things done. But rushing? Rushing is for amateurs. It strips all that fake glamour away from frantic energy. It tells us that reacting constantly and rushing blindly isn't a sign of high performance. It's actually the mark of an inexperienced leader who has totally lost control of the steering wheel. Section 1. The paradigm shift. Why we need to slow down. To really grasp this, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. That intense, almost crushing pressure you feel every single day to make rapid-fire decisions. You get an angry email, you immediately want to fire back to defend your team. A crisis pops up, you want to issue a command instantly just to look decisive to your peers. We face this because we equate speed with competence, but that is the amateur mindset. The amateur is frantic, they're rushing. They are jumping at the absolute first idea because they're caught in a dopamine loop of just trying to clear their plate. It's panic disguised as productivity. But the pro? The pro completely rejects that pressure. They intentionally slow down. They recognize a fundamental truth of leadership. The first idea is rarely the best idea. The pro dictates the terms of engagement. They control the tempo. They absolutely do not let the tempo control them. Now, what's really interesting here is this profoundly simple question. Why take your time? I mean, when the whole corporate world is screaming at you to go faster, to be more agile, to break things, why intentionally put yourself in slow motion? It goes against every instinct we have. But take a breath with me for a second. We have to separate perceived urgency from actual importance. Let's look at the actual physics of leadership and what happens when we refuse to slow down. Section 2, the danger of speed, the real cost of quick decisions. Well, it turns out there is a direct, undeniable correlation between rapid-fire choices and deeply negative outcomes. Speed, without extreme clarity, is dangerous. Quick decisions almost always lead to big mistakes. This is the illusion of speed that traps so many well-meaning managers. You think you're solving a problem quickly by firing off a fast directive, but really, you're just accelerating your errors. Imagine sending off a hasty email to a furious client without checking the actual contract terms first. You think you've put out the fire, but you literally just poured gasoline on it. You've ruined a relationship and created a legal headache. You're building a house on a completely shaky foundation, and eventually that rush decision is going to collapse. It creates a massive mess that takes 10 times longer to clean up than if you just paused, verified the facts, and responded methodically in the first place. Quick decisions don't save time. They borrow time from the future at an exorbitant interest rate. Section 3. The mechanics of pro leadership. Taking a breath. So the crucial point is, how do we actually fix this? We know rushing is for amateurs, and we know blind speed causes catastrophic mistakes. Let's pivot to the actionable framework. Ian Slade outlines 3 explicit steps that separate the pros from the amateurs when the heat is on. Step 1, take a breath. This isn't just a metaphor. Seriously, just pause. Create physical and mental space between the stimulus and your response. Implement a 24-hour rule for highly emotional emails, or literally just take a 5-minute walk around the building before answering a high-stakes question. Let your autonomic nervous system reset so you aren't leading from a place of fight or flight. Step 2, ask questions. Amateurs assume they have all the facts because they're in a rush. Pros are relentlessly curious before they're decisive. Ask yourself and your team, what am I missing here? Is this an actual emergency or just an inconvenience? Do we have the data to support this move? And step 3, think things through. This is where you play out the second and third order consequences. If we pull resources to fight this fire, what other project falls behind? The pro is playing chess, thinking 3 moves ahead, while the amateur is just frantically playing reactive checkers. Section 4. The ROI of patience. Making smarter moves. What is the actual return on investment for slowing down? Because let's be real, smart leaders don't just pause for the sake of looking stoic. They do it because there is a massive, tangible payoff. Think of these as compounding benefits. First, you spot hidden problems that the amateurs entirely miss in their rush. If you're driving down a road at 100 miles an hour, the landscape is a blur, right? You won't see the potholes until you hit them. If you slow down to 30 miles an hour, you see every crack in the pavement and can easily steer around them. Second, you listen more. Because you aren't constantly talking and dictating, you create a vacuum that your team will fill. You actually hear the subtle warnings your frontline employees are trying to give you. And finally, when you combine spotting those hidden structural problems with actively listening to your team, the inevitable result is that you make smarter moves. Your decisions transition from being purely reactive triage to highly strategic resource deployments.
Section 5. Leading like a genius. Why patience isn't slow. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate core takeaway of our entire explainer. We are fundamentally redefining a word we all think we understand. It elevates us from just leading like a pro to leading like a genius. Patience isn't slow. Patience isn't sluggishness, hesitation, or weakness. Patience is an active, dynamic tool. Think of patience not as an absence of movement, but as potential energy. It's a coiled spring. It's a weapon you deliberately wield to pause, assess the battlefield, think strategically, and then lead. You aren't freezing in the face of danger. No way. You are actively gathering your power to strike with absolute, undeniable precision. The amateur sprays bullets in the dark, but the genius waits for the smoke to clear.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Think about tomorrow morning. Think about the very next time your inbox blows up, a client makes an impossible demand, or a sudden crisis hits, and you feel that intense, familiar pressure in your chest to just decide fast. What will you do? Will you give in to the panic and rush like an amateur, or will you dictate the tempo, take a breath, ask the hard questions, and pause like a genius? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.